Alright, and welcome to this lesson, where we're going to take a look at the best practices for a UI. So first of all, clean markup. Most companies are going to hire you as a front-end developer, which means a back-end developer is going to need to be able to use your UI. And the more classes and attributes you have on there, the more likely it is that your UI is going to break because they've just missed off a simple class. So keep the markup minimal, that way everything stays simple and people don't get frustrated with your UI. Second of all, responsiveness. Responsiveness is absolutely crucial again because this is a cloud-based service typically and people are going to be accessing it via smartphones and tablets. Then also, with the introduction of smartphone and tablets, what about touch gesture support? Now, touch gesture support can help improve performance and also make your UI very unique and individual in the way it functions. And also, you can provide a fallback for the desktop-based browsers. Then also we need to take a look at the resources. Keep the resources light. Try to combine multiple JavaScript files into one, obviously in your final production version and so forth. Then we need to look at the performance. We need to make sure that we are keeping as much of the CSS in the CSS, and again with all these nice little animations and transitions, keep that in the CSS as well because that's all GPU accelerated. And again, don't forget that even if you have to write a little bit more CSS and a little bit more JavaScript because your markup is so simple, that's a good thing. Make that sacrifice and always keep that markup to a minimum. I cannot stress that enough. Then we need to take a look at the design aspects of our UI. So again, the first thing is legibility with the design, and it always will be. There is no point having a UI if you can't read the content. The content is king. That's why they're there. That's why they're using the product. Your UI is to just complement. So again, we need to have great contrast, especially with text and even with the components themselves. Then also what we need to do is take a look at the way the content is delivered. We need to make sure that it is delivered cleanly and simply without having to burrow through hundreds and hundreds of menus to get the information that we need. We need to deliver the content in such a way that they can get the content nice and easy. And that should be, again, a very, very crucial thing throughout the entire design phase. Then also, we need to take a look at the effective design pattern. So what I mean by this is when you have a design pattern, it typically means that all the components follow a similar sort of design. This is very, very important that you remember that because your UI needs to look together. All the components need to relate to one another. It's no good having like really rounded corners on most components and then the other half of the components they have sharp square corners. I know it sounds ridiculous, but the thing about it is your components are going to look like they belong to different UIs, and that isn't a good thing. Then also, you need to think about the color scheme. Again, this is a great way to make your UI look like it's part of all the same package. Pick a color scheme, keep it simple, don't put loads and loads of colors in because you defeat the purpose of the color scheme. So make sure you keep it simple, select maximum of about 10 colors, no more than that, you shouldn't need any more. And then once you've picked all those colors, then stick to them. Do not make any variations whatsoever. Maybe in the most extreme circumstance, but again, keep it minimal. Then what we need to do is look at the feasibility and practicality of developing our own custom UI. So we need to make sure that that component is nice and simple again, and that's the whole point about this entire thing, is just keeping everything as simple as possible. Because you see, when you're designing it, you can get a little bit carried away and start to do things that are not standard and can be very, very tricky to implement. Then you've got to write a ton of CSS and a ton of JavaScript to get this thing to work, and in actual fact all it's doing is again just delivering that content. So the most important thing is keep that simple because you're going to add tons and tons of bloat there, and then obviously you're adding more to the resources and you're making your UI more heavier, and also that can end up making it harder to implement as well because typically then you need to go into the markup and so forth. Also, I recommend avoiding images at all costs. Again, you can use images, there's no real problem with that, but try to use as little as possible, if next to no images. That is going to be a much better UI, much simpler to implement. And so that is best practices for developing your own custom UI. So now what we're going to do is move on and take a look at the actual design inside of Photoshop, and again I'm going to show you about wireframing and a few other things that can be done if you are just designing the UI. So thanks for watching this lesson, and I hope you can join me in the next one.